Thank you. So we are reading Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text 39. Nimitani
Mitani
cha
cha
tasya
tasya
iha
iha
proktani
bhuktani
anagha
anaga
suribi
suribi
svata
svata
jnanam
gyanam
kuta
uta
pumsam
umsam
bhakti
bhakti
vairagyam
vairagyam
eva
eva
va
va
nimitani cha tasyeha
nimitani cha tasyeha
proktanyan gashuribi
bhuktanyanaga suribi
svato jnanam kuta pumsam
svato gyanam kuta pumsam
bhaktir vairagyam eva va
Bhaktir Vairagyam Evava
nimitani cha tasyeha
Nimitani Chatasyeha
proktanya gashuribi
Uktanyanaga Suribi
Tato jnanam kuta pumsam
Svatogyanam Kutapumsam
bhaktir vairagyam eva va
Bhaktir Vairagyam Evava
nimitani cha tasyeha
Nimitani Chatasyeha
proktanya naghasuribi
Uktanyanaga Suribi
svato jnanam kuta pumsam
Svatogyanam Kutapumsam
bhaktir vairagyam eva va
Bhaktir Vairagyam Evava Nimitani Chatasyeha
nimitani cha tasyeha
Uktanyanaga Suribi
proktanya naghasuribi
Svatogyanam Kutapumsam
Tato jnanam kuta pumsam
Bhaktir Vairagyam Evava
Tirvairagyam eva va.
Nimitani cha te yeha,
Nimitani Chatasyeha
Proktani anagya suribi,
Uktanyanaga Suribi
Svato nagam kuta punsam,
Svatogyanam Kutapumsam
Bhaktir viragyam eva va.
Bhaktir Vairagyam Evava
Anyone online would like to chant a verse?
Nimitani cha tasyeha,
Nimitani chatasyeha,
Proktanyanaga suribi,
Proktanyanaga suribi,
Vatto gyanam kuta pumsam,
Svatogyanam Kutapumsam
Bhaktir vairagyam evava.
Bhaktir Vairagyam Evava
Okay, so we are going to do the word to word. Nimitani,
Nimitani,
the source of knowledge.
the source of knowledge.
Cha,
Cha,
also,
also,
tasya,
Asya,
of such knowledge.
of such knowledge.
Iha,
Iha,
in this.
In
in
this
this
world,
world.
Proktani,
Prani,
mentioned.
mentioned.
Anaga,
Anaga,
not less.
spotless.
Suribi,
Suribi,
by devotees.
by devotees.
Saha,
Sata,
self-sufficient.
self-sufficient.
Jnana,
Jnanam,
knowledge.
knowledge.
Kuta,
Kuta,
pums, how?
how.
Pumsam,
Umsam,
of the living entity.
of the living entity.
Bhakti,
Bhakti,
devotional service.
devotional service.
Vairagyam,
Vairagyam,
detachment.
detachment.
Eva,
Eva,
certainly.
certainly.
Ah,
Va,
also.
also.
So I'm on a maternity leave, so I forgot how to read. But I learned how to blame everything on being on maternity leave. So any faults you will hear today is just because of that. And so we are going to the translation. Spotless devotees of the Lord have mentioned the source of such knowledge. How could one have knowledge of devotional service and detachment without the help of such devotees? So this is Maharaj Vidura speaking to Maitreya Rishi. And actually it is Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages in Naimisharanya about how Shukadeva Goswami was speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, about how Maharaj Vidura was speaking to Maitreya Rishi. So
And it's all narrated by Srila Vyasadeva.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So I happen to have this detailed knowledge of who is speaking, because in my personal reading I am in Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 5. So I am keeping track of who is speaking. It's a little challenging sometimes. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. There are many inexperienced persons who advocate self-realization without the help of a spiritual master. They decry the necessity of the spiritual master and try themselves to take his place by propagating the theory that a spiritual master is not necessary. Srimad Bhagavatam, however, does not approve this viewpoint. Even the great transcendental scholar Vyasadeva had need of a spiritual master, and under the instruction of his spiritual master Narada, he prepared this sublime literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. Even Lord Chaitanya, although he is Krishna himself, accepted a spiritual master. Even Lord Krishna accepted a spiritual master, Sandipani Muni, in order to be enlightened. And all the acharyas and saints of the world had spiritual masters. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna accepted Lord Krishna as his spiritual master, although there was no necessity of such a formal declaration. So in all cases, there is no question about the necessity of accepting a spiritual master. The only stipulation is that the spiritual master should be bona fide. Example, the spiritual master must be in proper chain of disciplic succession, called the parampara system. Suris are great scholars, but they may not always be anaga or spotless. The anaga suri is one who is a pure devotee of the Lord. Those who are not pure devotees of the Lord, or who want to be on an equal level with him, are not anaga suri. Pure devotees have prepared many books of knowledge on the basis of authorized scriptures. Srila Rupa Goswami and his assistants, under the instructions of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, have all written various literatures for the guidance of prospective devotees, and anyone who is very serious about raising himself to the standard of pure devotee of the Lord must take advantage of those literatures. Oma Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shivishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhe Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchona Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamame Hare Priye Vanchakalpata Rupyascha Kripa Sinubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Desha Tarine. I have so much enthusiasm about this verse. I'm just so happy that I got the spiritual master verse. and I have like so much I want to share, and it's all like flying ideas here and there, and I kind of like want to say it all in one, like where to start, right? Like Vidura, also he's well, he asks so many questions before he's giving like his final statements before Maitreya Rishi is going to respond, and even like reading the questions by Maharaj Vidura, I cannot remember them all, but Maitreya Rishi is going to so expertly respond to all the questions of Vidura. And then Maharaj Vidura is putting this rhetorical question: how could one have knowledge of devotional service and detachment without the help of such devotees? How? And it's really a rhetorical question. He's not like, he's not expecting Maitreya Rishi to explain, well, Vidura, if you don't have spiritual master, this is how you can get the detachment and how you can get the, no, there is just like, the response is like, no, there is no way how to have knowledge of devotional service and detachment without the help of the spiritual master. So so spiritual master is like the key essential in our spiritual life, like the topmost important person and element for our spiritual master, for our spiritual life. And I think, at least for myself, and I speak for myself, I think I don't even like ever appreciate it enough. Like, okay, I am chanting Hare Krishna. How is it that I'm chanting Hare Krishna? Well, because the spiritual master, first of all, gave me the process. And maybe even more importantly, by his mercy, I can do that. And like, how much am I realizing that without the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, you know, if we now decided to stop that for whatever reason, and I will get to the reasons how it can happen. So if we decided to stop that, I will not say Krishna one more time in this life or in eternity, really. So anytime like now I can say Krishna, see? And it's only because of the mercy of the spiritual master Srila Prabhupada that I just said it. And if I can say it again, Krishna, thank you, Srila Prabhupada. See, I still have the mercy. So that's the test if we get the mercy of spiritual master. So without the spiritual master, there is like no spiritual life, zero, complete, absolute zero. Well, and I started this class unexpectedly that mercy can be given unconditionally and can be taken away, not unconditionally. But if we, for example, offend the spiritual master or different devotees, then the spiritual master would not take that offense because he's just tolerant. But Krishna doesn't tolerate. So Krishna can, if we offend the spiritual master, Krishna can reverse that mercy. And then there is nothing that the spiritual master can do. So as I'm reading in chapter 5 of this same canto, and this is a picture. We are seeing a picture. So the older personality, that's Maharaj. No, it's not Maharaj, it's Vidura. I think he's not Maharaj, right? I don't know. He's a great soul for sure. And then, but I think Maharaj refers to a king. And then the young personality, that's Uddhava. So at first, Maharaj Vidura is approaching Uddhava, and Uddhava is very confidential associate of Krishna. He's Nityasiddha, eternal associate of Krishna. And he's participating in Krishna's pastimes 5,000 years ago as his cousin. I think he's also cousin. And Maharaj Vidura, he's like, well, he's 2 generations older at that time. And he's approaching Uddhava because Uddhava was, when Krishna was leaving the planet, Krishna found like a secluded spot for himself. Like he was sitting under the tree, and he was alone. And then Uddhava approached Krishna. Uddhava was the final personality who had contact with Krishna before Krishna left the planet. And so naturally Vidura went to Uddhava and wanted to hear from him. But what happened is that as Krishna was speaking very confidentially to Uddhava, Maitreya, who was like nearby, but not there, he wasn't like in that intimate association, but he was nearby and he could hear everything. He could hear everything that Uddhava heard from Krishna. And actually Krishna knew that. Krishna knew Maitreya, he's nearby. And at that point when Maitreya was hearing, he wasn't a pure devotee yet. At least that's my understanding. And Krishna had in mind, okay, Maitreya is nearby and he's hearing what I'm telling to Uddhava. So also Krishna's speech to Uddhava was like a preaching to Maitreya. And Uddhava, he was aware that Maitreya Rishi was there hearing from Krishna also. And so Vidura could just as well ask Maitreya. So see, and Uddhava, he was aware of different principles of Vaishnava ethic, how not to offend a devotee. And so, even though in some point of view, Uddhava was much closer to Krishna, like more intimate associate, but in this pastime, he's younger. He was 2 generations younger than Maitreya. And Maitreya was still present on the planet, so Uddhava is telling to Vidura, well, you need to go to Maitreya, because I don't want to offend Maitreya. I'm younger, I'm even younger than you. That would be offensive if I would be to preach to you. Go to Maitreya, that's more of a proper ethic. And we can see from that how careful one needs to be not to offend the devotee, not to speak of the pure devotee spiritual master. But even to offend an ordinary devotee, quotes and quotes, if there is such a thing as an ordinary devotee, we don't really want to do that. We want to be very careful. So that's one thing. Like, we don't want to, the devotee, Srila Prabhupada is merciful and he's showering the causeless mercy upon the conditioned souls of this Kali Yuga, and he's showering generously on everyone, really. And then we can receive. And if we don't offend, we have a good chance that shower, the rain of the mercy, will not be stopped. And also there are things that we can positively do to not only not offend, but to inspire the spiritual master to reveal more of the transcendental knowledge, to reveal more of Krishna and how to please him and how to serve him. And so we get to, but there is this famous verse in Bhagavad Gita. Tadvini pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya uparekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarsinam. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So there are like very important principles as of how to approach the spiritual master if we really want to get all that we can get. So every morning we are singing this Guru Vandanam song, and the last, like the ending of the translation is, you are the friend of the poor and the Lord and the master of the devotees. So the friend of the poor, this is Srila Prabhupada showering his causeless mercy upon everyone. And then we can change the relationship from being this passive recipient into transforming that relationship to, you are the master of the devotees. We can really accept Srila Prabhupada as the master. And then it's active. It's like an active reciprocation process. And then what we will receive will be so much more greater. And there are important points in how to do it. Inquire from him submissively. So I'm hearing classes from Srila Prabhupada. Actually, it took me 8 years to start to understand Srila Prabhupada's English. It was always difficult for me to hear any English, I have to say. Even, when I was learning English, we always have these exams, like hear some audio and, write it. I was always very bad at it. But then, like, people with different accents take it to another level. So it took me 8 years to understand. But finally, I understand by Srila Prabhupada's causeless mercy, at least the English, not necessarily the content. But Srila Prabhupada, practically every class I am hearing, and I don't know if it's an accident, he says, like, if you want to ask a guru a question, and it doesn't even have to be in the spiritual field, if you want to ask a question, be ready to accept the response and act on it. And if not, don't go and don't ask, because it's just a useless waste of time for both. So this submissive inquiry is not blind following. Srila Prabhupada explains in these classes like, okay, I need to estimate, I need to use my intelligence. Is this a worthy person for my inquiry? This is a question, right? Like, is it like, do I trust this person? Is he qualified to respond to my question? And if I respond to myself, yes, this person is qualified, then if I go and ask, let's be ready to receive the response. And maybe I will respond to myself, no, this person, I don't really trust this person. Well, then don't ask at the first place. Just like don't engage in this, discussion, speculations. So that's the submissive, inquire from him submissively. And then render service unto him. That's the second key element. And I actually have been meditating quite a bit on the service to the spiritual mastery, and I pulled out some quotes for you. So, okay. So this will be from the purport to Bhagavad Gita, the very same verse. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender, and one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant without false prestige. Satisfaction of the self-realized spiritual master is the secret of advancement in spiritual life. Unless there is, I'm skipping one sentence, unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master, and when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. So we are learning here that the service should be like a menial servant. Well, not necessarily like ignorant, like a spirit soul who wants to pretend to be ignorant like me. Might not be sure what that means. So I googled a little more. So in Bhagavad Gita, purport to the verse 13, 8 to 12, Srila Prabhupada speaks, and this is the verse 13, 8 to 12, it's what Krishna declares to be knowledge. And one of the qualities, or the qualities that are considered knowledge by Krishna is approaching a bona fide spiritual master. And Srila Prabhupada speaks to that. One should approach the spiritual master with all humility and offer him all services so that he will be pleased to bestow his blessings upon the disciple. So all services. Because a bona fide spiritual master is representative of Krishna, if he bestows any blessings upon his disciple, that will make the disciple immediately advance without the disciples following the regulative principles. I kind of like that. I will read it again. If he bestows, the spiritual master, any blessings upon his disciple, that will make the disciple immediately advance without the disciples following the regulative principles. Or the regulative principles will be easier for one who has served the spiritual master without reservation. So serve like a menial servant without reservation. And it seems from this verse, it doesn't mean, of course, from one point of view, serving the spiritual master can look like following the regulative principles. And from this purport, it doesn't seem it's necessarily that. Because he says, Srila Prabhupada in this purport, okay, like, he will, even if he doesn't follow the regulative principles, if he serves the spiritual master, he will receive any blessings, and or it will be easier then for him to follow the regulative principles anyway. So okay, so then I picked 2 verses from Prahlad Maharaj. One is Lord Nrsimhadev is asking Prahlad Maharaj for any benediction from Lord Nrsimhadev. So Prahlad Maharaj can ask anything. And what does Prahlad Maharaj ask for? He's asking that he is able to serve Narada Muni, his spiritual master. So you can see from realized devotee like Prahlad Maharaj how the essential, most important, and also most relishable it is to serve the spiritual master. So Prahlad Maharaj says, in Srimad Bhagavatam 7:9-28, thus by associating with material desires one after another, I was following the general populace by falling into a blind well full of snakes. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, then the great sage Narada Muni kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve the transcendental position similar to his own. How could I ever leave the service of your servant? So again, it's just a rhetorical question. Prahlad Maharaj is not expecting that there is even possibility to leave such a spiritual master, like such a spiritual master who has saved me from following the general populace, right? So every one of us, I welcome you or encourage you to take a moment to think, where would you have been without the grace of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada? Right? Because sometimes we like to think, oh, I'm like doing so much better than others, right? I'm not eating meat, I'm not drinking wine. You know, okay, so where I would be without the grace of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, without this knowledge. You know, I don't know, but I can look where I was. That's clear. And now in Europe, we have the foot and mouth disease. And they have regulations that if any of the cows gets it, then they make a circle 10 kilometers diameter and kill all the cows. And I was on Thursday and Friday, I was attending the classes, like online classes for the veterinarians, you know, what's happening and what to do and not to do and things like this. And I was speaking one veterinarian from Slovakia, and they just killed 3,600 cows on one farm. It took them 8 days to actually do that, because it's a lot of cows. And, you know, towards the end, I really had a feeling in my heart, it was a good thing to do. Even though, like the foot and mouth disease, they recover. 95% of the animal recover almost completely. Or, you know, they have like some like minor health issues, like little less milk during the milking, or a little lame, but 95% of the animals fully recover. And I know, you know, it's not a good thing to do, but they show us the pictures, how the cows are in pain and suffering, and it's like really spreads fast. Like they had one positive cow, and in 5 days, 75 of the cows were positive. It's like a tsunami. And then seeing all the cows in pain and all that, and then like, yeah, it's such a relief that the cows die. So see, that's where I would be there. That's where I would be. That's where I would be. I would be maybe even like actively participating to help to cure the disease. And I could see the veterinarian, it was like older, for me older, for some maybe younger. gentleman. And I could see it was painful for him what he experienced, but he was convinced that what they did was the right thing to do. And that's why they have him to speak to the others, of course. Also, because it was official, governmental like that. So yes, I really encourage everyone to look at what intelligence we would have to navigate this life, what modes of nature we would be living from if it wasn't for the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And then to leave his service unconceivable to someone like Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad Maharaj, of course, there is this famous verse of the 9 processes, because this is still like, okay, what is it to serve the spiritual master? How does it look like? Like we get to hear so much how to serve Krishna from Srila Prabhupada, but how is it to serve the spiritual master? So I'm sure it applies, these 9 principles of devotional service to Krishna. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada, Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani, Vedanam. Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.23. Prahlad Maharaj said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, of Srila Prabhupada, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. In other words, serving him with body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. So we have like a list of ideas how we can serve. And okay, interestingly, I am reading every time when I do a lunch offering to our deities and Srila Prabhupada, I am reading from this book, like they're the Vaishnav songs and their translations, and many of them have purports, very ecstatic purports by Srila Prabhupada. But today I was reading Sri Rupa Manjari Pada. So I think it's relevant because Prahlad Maharaj is saying, okay, we can, what is it? Serving the lotus feet of the Lord. So it's actually Narottam Das Thakur serving the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, this song. So I will read the translation. The lotus feet of Sri Rupa Manjari are my real wealth. They are the object of my devotional service and worship. They are the treasure of my heart, and they are my ornaments and the life of my life. For me, they are the reservoirs of all rasa and the conclusion of the religion of the Vedas. They are the fulfillment of all my desires and the goal of all my vows, my austerities, my religious activities, and the chanting of my mantra. See, so the goal of all my vows, my austerities, my religious activities, and the chanting of my mantra is the lotus feet of the spiritual master. By the power of those lotus feet, my activities will become favorable to devotion. I will achieve spiritual perfection, and with these 2 eyes, I shall be able to actually see. Both day and night, the flood of exquisite beauty of Sri Rupa Manjari's divine lotus feet will shine like the brilliant full moon upon the lotus of my heart, soothing my afflicted soul. O Rupa Manjari, the venom of the snake of separation from you has enfilled my soul, and now my life is ever afflicted and distressed. Alas, please have mercy and give me the shade of your lotus feet. Narottam Das has taken refuge. So I was still wanting to understand more how to serve the spiritual master, because it's very important. And Srila Prabhupada really have us think every day how important it is. Like in the morning at the Mangalarti, we are singing Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutopi Dayam Stuvam Stasyaya Shastri Sandhyayam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam. So that means This is a translation from Bhagavad Gita purport. I'm not sure if it's the same as the song, but Srila Prabhupada says, by satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. And then, after chanting japa, we start again with Guru Vandana. Chakudana deyoe jamme jamme prabhusei divyagyan hriday prokashito. So he opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He's my Lord, birth after birth. So it means birth after birth I am serving. So we get to remember, if we want to, every single day how important it is. And then I was looking, what's most pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, and I know that there exists a lot of varieties of responses to this question, and I was able to find only one. So let's just go with that, and then maybe later we can have discussions. What are the other most pleasing things we can do to please Srila Prabhupada? So during lecture in Detroit, July 1971, Bahulashva is asking, what is the thing that would please you the most? And Srila Prabhupada says, chant Hare Krishna. So the devotees chant Hare Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada continues, that is the simple thing. You are chanting, I am very much pleased. That's all. I came to your country to chant, that you chant also along with me. So you are helping me by chanting, so I am pleased. So it seems it's not just chanting to ourselves silently, but chanting loud so others can hear. And it's we are helping Srila Prabhupada came to deliver all the fallen souls. So even if we are working on delivering ourselves, that's already helping. And when we chant loud, we are helping also others. But this, and Srila Prabhupada continues, but this tendency is very nice, that you want to please me. That is very good. And to please me is not very difficult. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that under my order, every one of you go and preach and become spiritual master. And what is that order? The order is that whomever you meet, talk to him about Krishna. Varedeka tarekaha Krishna upadesh, amara agyana guru hanatara eidesh. He says that under my order, you become a spiritual master. To become a spiritual master under the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not very difficult. Unless we adulterate, mix in something nonsense in his teachings, if we simply present as it is, then every one of us can become a spiritual master. But the difficulty is that they mix up something, just like you have tasted sweet rice. Paramana. And if somebody mixes some sand with it, the paramana itself is very good, but because it is mixed with some sand particles, it is spoiled and you cannot take. There is a letter to his sons and daughters, August 1976. If you feel at all indebted to me, then you should preach vigorously like me. That is the proper way to repay me. Of course, no one can repay the debt to the spiritual master, but the spiritual master is very much pleased by such an attitude by the disciple. Okay, and then it continues. I will jump to the end. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung, Krishna say tomara, Krishna dite para, tomara sakatyache, ameta kangala, Krishna Krishna boli, daitava pache pache. Krishna is yours and you have the power to give him to anyone you wish. I am poor and wretched and running behind you shouting, Krishna, Krishna. So that's it. The spiritual master, he has Krishna. And he can give Krishna to anyone, and we are seeing it practically, like Srila Prabhupada says, we are seeing it practically. So we are seeing it practically. And yeah, so we can, like, the service to the spiritual master, of course, is all the 9 processes of spiritual service can be applied to the service of spiritual master. And Srila Prabhupada is most pleased when we chant Hare Krishna and when we follow this process and when we are developing some love for Krishna. It's very pleasing to him. And then when we are also doing the service together and coming together like this now, what we are doing is very pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. We are sitting together at different places of the world and speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, and also the sharing, so dear to Srila Prabhupada and to all of our parampara, is to, like, you receive this process. So if you think it's good, it's worthy, if you have any gratitude, and share it. So I want to also say a little to the no changing. So you can easily share. I know there is the story of little Saraswati. She was the youngest, the first child in the movement, and she was going to the people and she was saying, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So it's really very simple thing. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. We don't need to read Srimad Bhagavatam 10 times and memorize it and then go to preach or something like that. But it shouldn't be changed in any way. And then if you do that, that was I'm not sure, maybe I skip it in my reading. Anyway, if we don't mix, right, Srila Prabhupada says, like, become a guru. Lord Chaitanya says, become a guru. That's his only instruction. And then how? Just don't change anything. Just share what you learned, even if you just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. That's very good. That's sufficient. And then you are a guru if you do that. If you just share what you learned and don't change it. And as I shared, I'm hearing Srila Prabhupada's classes, and my little red yellow jukebox. I am on the class of 260. And what I want to say is I'm really appreciating you, Govinda Prabhu, because I always had a feeling or sense that you don't do this, that you don't change Srila Prabhupada's words. But I was always thinking that maybe you add something like your own. I was thinking like you are sharing something in your own words. Like you heard, you understood, and in your own words you are presenting. But I'm hearing Srila Prabhupada and I'm like, wait a minute, this is what Govinda Prabhu is saying. Wait a minute, this too, and that too. Oh, I thought at least of this metaphor he taught himself. Hare Krishna. Because it's like hearing, of course, reading Srila Prabhupada's books is one way of how Srila Prabhupada expresses himself, but then hearing the classes is a different way. And now I'm like, does Dhira Govinda Prabhu even once says a sentence that Srila Prabhupada didn't say? So I don't know how you do that, but that makes you a guru or spiritual master. And and then all of us need to be very careful not to offend you. And really anywhere we go, okay, I spoke about Srila Prabhupada till now, and it's important for me to conclude that these principles are really relevant for, I don't want, maybe anyone is too strong word, but if we go to spiritual guidance to someone, and this person is such qualified, like Lord Chaitanya is describing, he's, he learned in the parampara and he's not adding anything, then we really need to treat that person in the same way of service and gratitude and respect, and be very careful not to commit any offenses. It's probably already offensive that I'm speaking now. But also Srila Prabhupada gave that example that he allowed his young disciples to speak in his presence. So anyhow, what I want to say is that because like in our community, it's not very emphasized, I would say, or at least not often. And it can be it can ruin our spiritual life if we do opposite. And I mean it seriously. And I will not go into concrete examples, but I also seen it. And if you have like, any whatever judgment, we can have judgment, criticisms and this and that, but we really need to process those in very humble way. But if we don't, that can like completely take all the mercy away from us. And then we will have no strength to chant anymore. We will have nothing. So like the discussion like who is a pure devotee and who is not is really not that very relevant. Because there is the process, like there is a person whom I trust, he has the knowledge, he's not changing a word. I go to guidance for many, many years. If I'm offensive, my spiritual life is ruined. And, if I don't render any service, my spiritual life will probably not be ruined, but also will be quite stuck. Sometimes we might look at like, oh, I'm not quite making any progress for past few years or something like that. Also, always a good idea is to look at where I am being offensive or where I am, where I'm not in the spirit of service. And it's so pleasing to Krishna that we are serving his devotees. And I'm quite sure that Krishna wouldn't be like very inspired by the spirit. Well, Krishna, I am not serving your devotees, but I really don't think this is a pure devotee. Look at what this person is doing. I mean, like, really. And I think, Krishna, it will be dangerous for me to serve this person. So, don't worry. It's like, of course, we want to keep the, how to say, we want to keep things in a proper perspective. So we might serve differently to someone who is like junior to us and is coming to guidance. And he might serve in a different way to those who are like peers and friends to us. And we might serve differently in those who are senior and we are going to guidance to them. For sure, there are like distinctions to be made. And also, if we like don't develop this service attitude towards all the devotees, and really we can see in the example of life of Srila Prabhupada, he had this service attitude towards everyone. Like when he came to the West and he was cooking for all his disciples big feasts, and then he was cleaning dishes after everyone and being the last in the line to the toilet, not to glorify his early disciples, but where we see the mood. Because Srila Prabhupada was everyone seeing as a devotee. That was his clear intention for us. So he wasn't like, oh, this is not a pure devotee, I don't have to serve them. No, he was like, Krishna, see, these are pure devotees, they are coming to take your prasadam. So I served them. Hare Krishna. So I will read the verse again. Nimitani chatasyeha praktanya naga suribi svatogyanam kuta pumsam bhaktir vairagyam evava. Spotless devotees of the Lord have mentioned the source of such knowledge. How could one have knowledge of devotional service and attachment without the help of such devotees? See? How could one have knowledge of devotional service and attachment without help of such devotees? We are so dependent on the help of the devotees. Hare Krishna. I think you are still muted, Diragovinda Prabhu. So I am welcoming questions, comments, additions. doubts, triggers, whatever you like to share. Okay, okay, before anyone go, I just got another point, like the, okay, it's probably easier not to criticize Srila Prabhupada than not to criticize the quotes and quotes ordinary devotees. But we really need to understand that as soon as someone is on this path, it's like everything is arranged by Krishna. So there might be like conflicts or like apparent shortcomings and faults, but Krishna is already directing this devotee from their heart. So, there might be all sorts of things that from the material point of view look like, wow, this is like so fallen. But really, Krishna just might be rearranging his devotees in. Okay, good. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anandine. Oh, I'm not hearing you too well.
Not, oh,
How about now?
Yes.
Any better? Okay. Thank you. I appreciated you just keeping to one topic, very simple and calming for my mind, just to focus on, what does it mean to serve the spiritual master? This committing offenses to the devotee, and it could stop the mercy. It's something I don't, either I'm thinking too far, or it's I would like to hear more your understanding of, Srila Prabhupada also explained somewhere in Bhagavad Gita that the mercy of Krishna is like the sun. It just falls on everyone, doesn't make distinctions, just falls on everyone. There's a constant flow of mercy. And then what we can do is to get out into the sunshine and not hide in the shadow, in the house or under the tree, so we can get the mercy. So I'm wondering, how is the mercy stopped when we commit an offense? Also looking at, like who is stopping the mercy? And then there's all these examples of like Narada Muni cursing Chagai and Madhya. No, who is he cursing? And they are the two Arjuna trees in Krishna.
Manigriva and Nalakuvera.
Yes. So it's a curse. Is a curse? Is it something different? In the end, it's a mercy. So no, everything in the end is mercy. So I'm just curious to understand more how come the mercy is stopped, and who stops it, and how much is it my how is it something in my psychology? Like, when I have a commitment to my deities. To every Ekadashi, I do something special for them. And if I don't do it, I can see my self-worth going down really fast, because I'm not keeping my word to the deities. And somehow that's stronger. It has a stronger effect than when I don't keep my word about something else. So is that, I'm not clear in my question. Maybe I would
Thank you,
just...
Anna.
Also, what is between committing an offense to a devotee and an ordinary person? I want to be respectful to everyone. So, yeah.
I really appreciate your questions, and I'm feeling like so enthusiastic that I get to respond. I'm like, oh, this is how Maitreya had to feel when Vidura was asking these questions. And then Vidura is asking one question after another. And if I was Maitreya, I would be like, oh my God, I want to start to respond now. Keep your... Oh, Krishna. Yes, so yes, it's like it's really like I'm really appreciative that you asked because it helps me to bring like a package of different perspectives. And okay, so I will start with the Manigriva and Nalakuvara pastimes because that was the mercy of Narada Muni. So the pure devotee, he doesn't reverse the mercy. And Narada Muni knew that Krishna will be angry with Nalakuvara and Manigriva, that they offended him. And by his curse, he wanted to protect them from Krishna stopping his mercy upon them. Meaning also then it would mean of the devotees. So Narada Muni is doing this curse like to kind of show, see Krishna, I am punishing them. So it's good. You don't need to take care for it. And then because he's a pure devotee and he didn't withhold his mercy, it's actually his curse is a mercy. Then we have an example of Maharaj Ambarish and Durvasa Muni. So Durvasa Muni, he everyone is familiar with the story here? Okay, so I get to say the story. Hare Krishna. So Maharaj Ambarish, he's a great saintly king, and he's always engaging in all the 9 processes of bhakti and always engaging all his senses in bhakti. And in many places, it's described how he engages all the senses in bhakti. And he and his wife, they are doing a fast, 1 year fast. And then keeping fast is as important as breaking the fast at the right moment. So the right moment to break a fast is approaching, and Durvasa Muni appears on the scene with all his men. And it's a proper etiquette to receive a sage by offering him meal first. Like first we serve the guests, and after that, when the guests are fully satisfied and we get the guests' permission, we actually can take. So Maharaj Ambarish wants to follow this etiquette. And Durvasa Muni with his men, he's going to take a bath, and he says, and then I will come back and have my meal. And Maharaj Ambarish doesn't know what to do, because if he doesn't break his fast, then all the 1 year of fasting will come in vain. And if he breaks his fast, then he will offend Durvasa Muni. So Maharaj Ambarish is asking the Brahmanas, what shall I do? And they tell him, okay, just drink a little bit of water. Drinking a little bit of water is like breaking a fast, but not quite. And it's like eating your lunch, but not quite. Just take a little bit of water. So what happens, Durvasa Muni, because of his mystic powers, he knows what Maharaj Ambarish did. And Durvasa Muni is well known of getting angry very quickly and easily. So he gets angry with Maharaj Ambarish for being welcomed improperly. And he, he creates a monster that's supposed to kill Maharaj Ambarish. And Maharaj Ambarish folded his hands in this apologetic mood, okay, this is what I deserve. It's okay. But Krishna is not okay with it. So we see the mercy of the pure devotee is yeah, I accept, I offended, I'm supposed to be killed by this monster, whatever. And then Krishna doesn't accept. So that monster that Durvasa Muni created actually turns against Durvasa Muni. And Durvasa Muni is running away from the monster. And then he's flying throughout the universe and the monster following him. And then he goes to Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Lord Vishnu. And he's always asking them to help. And all of them, one by one, say, nothing I can do for you. You offended a pure devotee. So at the end, Durvasa Muni goes back to Maharaj Ambarish, offer Dandavat, like falls flat in front of Maharaj Ambarish, and begs his forgiveness. And Maharaj Ambarish, he has nothing to forgive. And that's what ultimately saves the Durvasa Muni. So as Anandini asked, there is also a process how we can amend. So it's not that when we offend, then we are going to hell forever, or there is no hope for us for eternity. And that amend is apology. And actually, like a sincere remorse apology. Not just like, sorry, right? But like a sincere remorse, deeply meant apology is our amend. And then you said, yes, Krishna is showering his mercy like the sun, is showering his rays, and we can be in the shade. So by offending the spiritual master, we are putting ourselves in the shade. And I would say there are like layers or levels of that shade. So if we offend the spiritual master, pure devotee, we are in such a shade that there is like it's like complete darkness. And if we offend, I'm just like making this up as a visionary. If we offend someone who is not even practicing Krishna consciousness, we are also putting ourselves in the shade. But there are still maybe some rays coming through. And then, anything in between. According to how dear that spirit soul that we offended is to Krishna. And yes, there was one more thing. The deity service. And then when you don't do it, you feel guilty, and you feel more guilty than when you don't keep another of your commitments. Well, when I was going to the temple, and I don't know if it's process given by Srila Prabhupada, but I really like that. After every time I did the service of 6 hours, I was asked by the temple authorities to chant prayers for forgiveness. And it's really, Krishna, forgive me all the offenses that I did, all the service that I did in the improper state of mind, not being clean. I don't remember it because it's a while that I read it last time. But they like regularly, the temple devotees, and I think not only Czech Republic, but I'm not sure if Srila Prabhupada gave that process. But anyway, the devotees regularly practice to forgive me these offenses during the service. And of course, that can happen. If we do it daily, it can become a little mechanical. But if we really do it with feeling, that's a way to amend. Like yesterday we had a class, group coaching with Mother Malini on humility. And humility also is, yes, we are going to commit offenses. Like our nature, our conditioning, or our nature in this world is just so offensive by nature. My mind is so impure. I'm criticizing someone constantly in my mind. I am, putting myself like a superior. I am, unclean in my actions, in my words, in my thoughts, in my body. So I'm constantly going to make offenses. And then it is very similar to the process that Mother Malini was offering yesterday. And then there is this like sincere, apology, not like taking ourselves down, not in a sense of humiliation, but in a sense of humility. Yes, I am. I want to serve you, and I have all these impurities, and I know that I'm offensive, and I'm getting so much mercy, Srila Prabhupada, anyway, that it's unconceivable. And I'm like completely undeserving of that. I know that I should be like in the darkest region of the material world, that there is no ray of Krishna's mercy falling. and I am still receiving so much, only by your causeless mercy. And then if it's a humility, it really feels ecstatic and joyful, these thoughts. And if it's humiliation, then it feels like down and guilt and demotivating, like that. How does it respond to your questions?
It does respond, and it brings up more questions.
Hare Krishna. It's like Vidura. Like I am actually reading now first set of Vidura's questions to Maitreya, and Maitreya responded, and now Vidura is asking more questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Hladini.
Hare Krishna.
I think it wasn't it Krishna's Sudarshan chakra that chased?
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure of that part of the story.
I think, yeah. But thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I
Yeah,
might
the
have more questions later.
Sudarshan chakra destroys the creature that Durvasa Muni creates and then starts to chase him. Yes, that's correct. Okay. Any other comments or questions before Anandini's second set of questions?
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Thank you, Hladini Shakti, for your class and presentation. And I was moved when you said, let's imagine, like, if Srila Prabhupada didn't find us and what our life would be like. And so there was like some really tragic and catastrophic scenarios, and some scenarios that were just less catastrophic, but it was all quite gloomy and dark. So it moved me to to some deeper appreciation for personally for Srila Prabhupada in my life, and so you expressed your introspective, when I saw as a humble awareness that you experience yourself as like not appreciative. So I went towards a few more drops of gratitude for Srila Prabhupada in my life. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And of course, what I've gotten from Srila Prabhupada is a debt I'm not able to repay. So I get to attempt to repay by endeavoring to serve Srila Prabhupada in his mission. It related to the conversation. Maya means illusion, and a meaning of Maya is mercy. A meaning of Maya is mercy. So just like so like the government or the king or the queen, they can give mercy. We're having special festivals for the citizens. Wonderful. But then some citizens go to the prison house. Well, that's also the mercy. That's also the mercy of the government, the king, the queen, because like it's mercy, like, oh, I'm in the prison house. This is suffering. Let me reflect. What did I do to get here? And then like when we're disrespectful or more than disrespectful to we're grossly offensive. I'm grossly offensive to Srila Prabhupada or Srila Prabhupada's sincere followers, or any living entity, right? With any living entity, the spirit, soul, and the body of an ant. We don't want to be offensive to the ant. And of course, what constitutes disrespect or offense, that relates to, different boundaries of relationships with different living entities. And so, of course, there's this sort of regard the hunter. So he was taking enjoyment in making animals suffer. It's a great offense. It's a great offense. And then he transformed through Narada Muni and I think Narada Muni and Agastya Rishi or Angira Rishi. Then he was going to greet them, but he was he was going back and forth because he didn't want to step on the ant. He didn't want to be disrespectful to an ant, didn't want to unnecessarily kill. So that's transformation. And then we might say maybe the darkest, most torturous place of the prison house, because there's minimum security prison, there's regular prison, and then just maybe the darkest part of the prison house, that's where I go when I'm committing offense to the pure devotee and the pure devotee's sincere followers. And then, as you mentioned, Hladini, there's different levels and layers. There's like offenses that are generally unconscious, but like if we're really trying to stop a devotee from doing service or gossiping behind their back or out of envy trying to pull them down, okay, that's like, okay, then that's yeah, then the pure devotee, the humble soul, whether a pure devotee or not, the humble soul for themselves won't take offense, but Krishna is very angry, but then Krishna's not going to tolerate that. So then we go to where there's no sunlight. I liked your analogy of sun. Then we go to where there's no sunlight. But then that's my in the sense of complete illusion, and it's also mercy, because then I get to see, to whatever extent I have sincerity, I get to see, okay, how come I'm in this miserable condition, and I know I've lost my enthusiasm for devotional service, and I'm getting all these calamities happening to me. Okay, yeah, okay, I can understand, even if I don't have the feeling, I can understand from the philosophy. I probably committed offenses to living entities, and probably committed offenses to sincere devotees of God, probably committed offenses to the pure devotee. So it's also mercy, and we get an opportunity to see it that way. One more thing comes to mind. One of the texts you quoted several of the wonderful guru, spiritual master verses that Prabhupada often references. You quoted Yaridekitari Kat Krishna Pradesh Amaragagu Anatara Desh. So in my personal reading, I'm on Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 7. Chapter 6 is the discussions with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and chapter 8 will be the discussions between Srila Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya. So chapter 7 is Lord Chaitanya's tour of South India, and there he's at this Korma temple, and he meets a Brahmin named Korma, and Korma wants to leave everything and just go with Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya says, no, don't leave your family. Yaridekitari Ka Krishna Pradesha Maragaya Guruhanatari Edesh. No, stay in your situation. You don't need to change your dharma, your service, or your family situation. And wherever you go, wherever you meet, be a spiritual master. And that's just a very interesting purport. And I'm not saying I have understanding of it, but in the purport, Srila Prabhupada, in one sentence, he says, it's best to not take disciples, and everyone should be a spiritual master. So I'm still meditating on it. And I remember in our Chaitanya Charitamrita group years ago when we were there, I was also, so I'm like, be a spirit means like cultivate mastery of spirit, cultivate, yea, Krishna Tattva to say, cultivate mastery of the science of Krishna, so that wherever we go, we're a touchstone of transformation. And then in a sense, whoever we share with, whether it's verbally or in whatever way, they get inspired in Krishna consciousness. And then in one way, we are a guru for them. And then simultaneously, in I think one sentence after the next in the same paragraph, Prabhupada's saying it's best not to take disciples. So I'm endeavoring to serve Prabhupada by being a spiritual master, meaning that whoever I touch, whoever I come in contact with, I'm endeavoring that they get some transformation, they get some value, spiritual value, Krishna consciousness, distinction between spirit and matter, dehinosmin yata dehe. So I'm endeavoring to move towards by my very presence to be a spiritual master. And my way of spiritual master is to support and encourage by my words and example others to become a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, in the sense of encouraging them to cultivate, to establish, cultivate, and develop their direct relationship with Srila Prabhupada as their guru in the singular. So anyhow, just wanted to share some things that came to me from your class and the exchange with Anandini.
Krishna, Hare Govinda Prabhu. Thank you very much for sharing. I love this last, act as a spiritual master, but don't take disciples.
Yeah.
And it seems completely contradictory, but it completely resonates with me. I think that's exactly what I'm trying when I share Krishna consciousness with others. Like to be the spiritual master, but I don't. Like basically, like whatever I'm always trying to say, well, Srila Prabhupada says this about that, and Srila Prabhupada says that about that. So it's like teaching what I understood from Srila Prabhupada. And then, no, don't take disciples. I love it. And then also I appreciate your point about how Maya is also mercy. Like first I was a little shocked to hear that, but then it also like makes sense that the prison is mercy for, like it's better to be in prison than to cause more harm to myself or than to others. And I appreciate your personal sharing about your mind creating different parallel scenarios. If Srila Prabhupada didn't pick you like that, so yes, I appreciate that you did that experiment with your mind and that you experience some few more drops of gratitude to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Okay, any more questions, comments, realizations?
Yeah, I have something more. I'm taking a break from reading Srimad Bhagavatam because I want to study the Bible in preparation for Easter. Well, not fully taking a break, but I'm spending time with the Bible and listening to classes by Richard Rohr on transformation. He's a Franciscan priest. He has a center for contemplation. Actually, anything he shares is so aligned with Sattva Tov and Bhakti Yoga and Srila Prabhupada. So today I was listening and he was speaking about one reason why Jesus Christ came was because the Jewish people at the time were so focused on rules and regulations, they forgot the essence. And so I think I have some hesitancy and fear to understand what are these rules and regulations around offenses, for example. Fear to become so fearful that I miss the essence. That's just what came to me around offenses. Maybe you have something to say about it. What,
I appreciate your
or Rosa has some.
personal vulnerable sharing about like you don't want to miss the forest for the trees. And then like, okay, like if you like really dove into like what are all the different offenses and all the different rules and regulations, that could be like so discouraging, demotivating, or on the other hand, like so absorbing, like either or, like either demotivating or like get like so absorbed there and lost that at the end you would not have the real sense of the feeling of love. It reminds me, as I'm reflecting here, it reminds me of the 6 like Sharupa Goswami lists list of the 6 items that are favorable for devotional service, and then the 6 that are unfavorable. And then there is like rejecting all the rules and regulations whimsically, and also following them without the essence. I don't remember the exact wording. So I think that's like the balance you are pointing towards too. And from your personal sharing, I get that for all of us, the balance can be maybe like a little somewhere else. Like I know that when I follow the rules and regulations, I like it. Like my psychophysical nature is like thriving on it. And it really helps me to remember Krishna when I have 4 different sponges in my kitchen and like that. And I know that for someone else, it can be like a complete, only like a reason for fault finding and guilt and shame and, being like distasteful for the devotional service. It's very nicely visible on the Padayatra actually, because on the Padayatra, the devotees from all different backgrounds and temple come together. And there is always the fight, how much to follow the rules and regulations on Padayatra. And I can completely see the devotees who really like the rules, and then they are keeping them on Padayatra too. And then there are those who really don't like them, and maybe for them it's more of a disturbance. And then they say, we are on Padayatra, just don't worry about this. And then there is a fight. So I think this balance of following too much, just like for the sake of following rules and regulations and missing the essence, and between whimsically rejecting, I think that will be one of those principles that every one of us need to find our own place where it feels like really supportive.
Thank you for that. And yet very concretely, so one rule is that a woman shouldn't give class if there's a man who could give class. So you're giving class. And
yeah,
we
I
have
said it. I'm probably already offensive completely.
So how do you handle that?
How do I handle that? Well, I really don't worry. I mean, it's like Srila Prabhupada allowed Yamuna Devi to lead class in front of 25,000 people or something like that, and he was present. So that's one way. Dhira Govinda Prabhu invited me to lead the class. So I feel less offensive than, let's say, Dhira Govinda Prabhu is leading class today, and then I come, and after 10 minutes, I kind of jump in. Of course, this is online, so he could mute me or remove me from the Zoom room like that, but, let's say, and I'm I take over, or let's say Dhira Govinda Prabhu gave class, and then someone asked a question, and I'm so tempted to respond that I don't even wait until Dhira Govinda Prabhu responds and I jump in with my response. Or worse yet, I don't wait for him to respond because I think that his response will be completely stupid and I know better. So I rather jump in before he has chance. So that would, from my point of view, even against a normal ethic, would be against a normal ethic, not just a Vaishnav. And then, Srila Prabhupada was very unconventional when it comes to different ethics rules like that.
Thank you.
But I don't criticize myself for giving class today.
I'm very happy you gave class. It's just one concrete example where I'm curious, what's the...
Where's that rule anyway? Where's the rule you just mentioned? But where is it?
I would need to research.
I don't think it's there. At least it's not from
Well,
Okay, so that's maybe an example of how there's rules made up more and more and more, and then people like me and others just get lost in the...
Well, for sure, there is the rule with Maitreya and Uddhava and Vidura. There is someone older. So even if you take women and men out, That's interesting. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I would imagine that traditionally women would not probably give class, or like that's what I heard. That Prabhupada was very innovative with that.
Yeah, as far as tradition, we don't really care about it. Our tradition is Srila Prabhupada. He's our, that's what it means. There could be so many traditions, and we take from tradition, we bounce, we process it through our current link, through Srila Prabhupada. In the discussion, I'm reminded of a story I heard recently from it was one of the Prabhupada memories from Aditi. Aditi, actually, she was, you've heard about that first Safato Foundational Seminar in 1999 in Alachua, and after the one in England. So she was in that. It was every Tuesday evening, and at Aditi, she served in the Child Protection Office when Malini was there. So we go back to the 90s, and I haven't had, actually, she was taking a jop walk the other day. I saw her a few years ago. So, but she's been serving Prabhupada's movement since the late 60s, and I just saw a Prabhupada memory. So she shared that she was serving in England, like whatever, 1971 or something. And Prabhupada arrived like really late, like at midnight or something like that. And by the time he got to the temple, it was like 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m. And something like, so even though it was late, they were serving cookies. And they were serving cookies. And then Prabhupada had the cookies, and then someone said, because it was like the day before was Ekadashi, and astronomically it was still the TT. It was still the TT of Ekadashi. So cookies with grains were not good for Ekadashi. So before Prabhupada started honoring the prasad cookies, someone said, "Oh, it's still Ekadashi, Srila Prabhupada." And what Aditi said is, Srila Prabhupada responded, we're not fanatics. We're not fanatics," and just started eating the cookie. So, so Prabhupada did want us to follow Ekadashi, and we're not fanatics with all these rules and regulations. Not to whimsically reject rules and regulations can help us advance, and not to follow them so narrowly and blindly that we forget the point. And the point there was to have prasadam cookies. Hare Krishna.
You really like that pastime, Govinda Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Subhara.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for participation in this class and for the opportunity to speak. And I'm taking this part as my pearl. And Hare Krishna.
Jai Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you all.